Welcome to This Explainer. When we think about a massive financial collapse, it's super easy to picture this chaotic, every person for themselves scramble for whatever cash is left. But today, we're going to explore how Indonesian bankruptcy law prevents exactly that kind of chaos. We're going to look closely at a really vital but often completely unspoken principle that holds the entire system together, the principle of integrity. It's actually not just some high-level moral concept. It's literally the absolute key to justice for every single person involved.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with the bankruptcy dilemma, move into the principle of integrity, check out the integrity of the players, look at the fair distribution of assets, and finish up with the cost of corruption.
Section 1. The bankruptcy dilemma, essentially the brutal math of a financial collapse.
So here is the big question. When an individual or a company is officially declared bankrupt, does that mean all of their assets just automatically belong to the creditors? There is this huge misconception out there that a bankruptcy declaration means creditors can just kick down the doors and seize whatever they can get their hands on. But no way. Bankruptcy is not merely about an inability to pay debts. It's a highly complex legal process involving multiple stakeholders and the collective distribution of an estate.
Let's use an example to show exactly why it has to be a collective process. Imagine company ABC owes a total of 80 billion rupiah. That debt is split up across three different creditors. Bank A holds the biggest chunk at 50 billion, which is about 62% of the total debt. Company B is owed 20 billion, and Company C holds the final 10 billion. So that's a total liability of 80 billion rupiah.
But here is the nightmare scenario. After bankruptcy, the total available estate of Company ABC is only 40 billion rupiah. The math simply does not work, right? Not everyone can be paid in full. So, can one super powerful creditor, like Bank A, just flex its muscles and take the entire 40 billion for itself? Absolutely not. The legal position of every single creditor has to be examined, and the payout must follow a strict legal framework so the strongest party doesn't just bully their way to the biggest share.
Section 2. The principle of integrity, the bedrock of the whole system.
So, how exactly does the legal system solve this mathematical impossibility of cramming 80 billion in claims into a 40 billion box? Well, if you read Law Number 37 of 2004 concerning bankruptcy and suspension of debt payment obligations, you actually won't find the word integrity defined as a standalone statutory principle. But what the statute rigorously demands is good faith, transparency, independence, and accountability. From a doctrinal perspective, when you combine all of those, integrity is the inherent foundational glue holding it all together. It is the unspoken principle underlying the entire administration of bankruptcy proceedings.
Let's move to and see how this builds into practical action. In bankruptcy, a curator is granted the authority to administer and liquidate the estate under a judge's supervision. But authority cannot just exist in a vacuum. It's a chain reaction. Authority requires responsibility, which must be executed with total transparency, subject to strict supervision, and ultimately resulting in absolute accountability. This step-by-step chain is the principle of integrity in action. It ensures that whoever controls that shrinking pie of assets is acting honestly.
Section 3. Integrity of the players, because the rules bind absolutely everyone.
A system is literally only as good as the people operating within it. Let's look at what a dangerous lack of integrity looks like across the board. First, the debtor. They might try to secretly hide property or fake financial transactions to avoid paying up. Then the creditor. They might abuse the process not to collect a real debt, but just to maliciously bankrupt a competitor. Next is the curator. Their violation would be playing favorites with a specific creditor. And finally, the judge. Lacking impartiality completely ruins the integrity of the commercial court itself. Every single player has to keep the system clean.
And the law definitely has teeth to deal with these violations. For example, if a debtor completely violates their integrity by hiding assets or selling things off at an artificially low price right before going bankrupt, the system fires back with a doctrine known as actio Pollaiana. This is a hardcore legal mechanism specifically designed to challenge and unwind those fraudulent transactions that cheat the creditors. It's how the system forces good faith back into the equation.
Section 4. Fair distribution of assets, how we actually slice the pie.
All right, we've established the estate has limited funds and that everyone has to act with integrity. So how does that dictate the actual payout? We really have to pay special attention to unsecured creditors here. Unlike a secured creditor, like say a bank holding the actual deed to a warehouse, unsecured creditors don't hold specific security rights over particular assets. Because they don't have that built-in safety net, the bankruptcy process has to rigorously ensure no single creditor gets an unfair advantage. Without integrity, an aggressive unsecured creditor might use personal connections to jump the line.
To completely stop that kind of VIP line jumping, Indonesian law relies on a concept called pari passu pro rata parte, which comes from Articles 1131 and 1132 of the Indonesian Civil Code. Translating that Latin into plain English, it means that creditors in the same legal category get paid proportionally, based purely on the size of their claims. Distribution is determined by strict mathematical law, not by who has the most influence and certainly not by who shouts the loudest.
Section 5. The cost of corruption. What happens when it all falls apart?
What actually happens in the real world when this framework fails? Without integrity, an orderly collective debt resolution just devolves into a nasty, chaotic, first-come, first-served grab for whatever assets are left. Bankruptcy is fundamentally designed to be this legally structured process for balancing competing interests. When fraud and favoritism take over, bankruptcy shifts from an instrument of resolution into a wrecking ball that benefits absolutely no one.
And the fallout from that wrecking ball? It does not stay confined to one courtroom. When financial institutions lose trust in this legal mechanism, it triggers a massive domino effect. Credit risk instantly spikes because banks can't trust they'll recover their money in a default. To balance that risk out, financing costs go up for every healthy business out there trying to get a loan. Legal certainty is completely weakened, and ultimately the entire broader investment climate takes a massive hit. Integrity in bankruptcy law is literally tied to the economic confidence of the entire nation.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely vital thought. When we look at a financial collapse, we shouldn't just be asking how many assets were sold off or how much of the debt got paid. The ultimate question we must ask is, was the entire process conducted with integrity? Because a sound system isn't just about liquidating assets. It's about preserving fairness, legal certainty, and public trust. Thank you for hanging out with me for this explainer on Indonesian bankruptcy law. I hope this helps you view the mechanics of financial resolution in a completely new light. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.